For just over 3 years now on YouTube, I've had the privilege, I've had the pleasure, I've had the honour of being able to produce content for all of you and to be able to just attend every Newcastle game, cover this football club. I guess is my full-time job, you could say. It was just always something that I wanted to do. Now, one promise that I did make to all of you when I first went full-time, I said every single Newcastle United game I would be at no matter what. And for the first time, I wasn't able to fulfill that promise at the back end of last season. So basically, just to give you a bit of context, Newcastle had Brentford away in our final game of the 2023-24 season. Then after the game in London, I was going to be flying straight out to Melbourne, Australia, where Newcastle would host two end of season fixture matches. And I wasn't able to attend any of those games because I had a medical emergency a couple of hours before the Brentford match. And the reason why I'm making a video now talking about this, you're talking 9 months later, is that I've only just been refunded my flight money a few days ago. The airline company I was booked through attempted everything in their power to basically refuse the refunds. They refused to give you my money back. Even the travel insurance company that I went through, the actual claims company at one stage said, no, you're not getting a refund. I kind of want to come out with this video today just to explain what's happened, why this was happening, and just to essentially tell you my story, because they tried their best to basically screw me out of my money. And for those of you who are watching, I want to hopefully give you some tips and tell you my personal experience just so you can keep yourself from getting into any sort of situation like this. On the day of the match against Brentford, I'm essentially heading over to the airport first. So I got my luggage. I'm dropping my luggage off at the bag store before I went to the game, and I went back to the airport afterwards. That would have been the plan. Now, on the day, for whatever reason, I just felt ill. It was quite peculiar and strange now that I look back at it, but I felt ill, like seriously ill. Dropped the bag off, sat down for a bit, just tried to get my strength together, and I headed down to the tube station at Heathrow Airport, and it got worse. I felt lightheaded. I kind of knew that I was going to pass out, so I basically got myself to the side. And the next thing I knew, I was on the ground, completely out of it. Now the problem was when I woke up, I started to spew up quite a lot of blood. Now the issue with that being is that could mean a million things. It's quite vague. You don't know straight away what it means. Now in the worst case scenario, that could have been something like a stomach cancer. So straight away, with NHS guidance, I had to go in, had to go get it checked out, had to find out what it was. Now, the second problem that I had wasn't just that I was chucking up blood. When I fell, I had quite a bad concussion in the back of my head, so I was just out of it, like just pure out of it. I wasn't able to walk around. I was quite all over the place. I was a bit frazzled. Obviously, at the time, I would have been a bit scared. I would have been a bit confused, and it was just a nightmare. So for me, my head's all over the place. Now, it was a rare occurrence, actually, where my medical emergencies happened at the airport. So straight away, the NHS just goes up to the staff member at the airport, explains that I'm supposed to be on a flight tonight. Already, the airline is aware that I'm not going to be on the flight tonight. Not to mention, when I was in A&E, I wasn't getting discharged. Straight away, I went on the telephone. I would have been a bit out of it, admittedly, but again, I've informed the airline company that I would not be on the flight tonight. Thirdly, I then online went through the process and telling them just I'm not going to be on the flight tonight. And we went through everything before the flight even took off to explain that I'm not going to be able to go to Australia. So despite that, a couple of days later, once we went through it, the airline company straight away said, no, you're not getting a refund. Now, they said that under the terms and conditions of our page, you're not entitled to a refund. And I had the cheek to basically send me a link to their terms and condition. I kid you not, in the terms and conditions, it states on the record, under a medical emergency of any form, you are entitled to a full refund. And they just said, no, you're not getting a refund. Now, I'm going to tell you the price of the flight now. It was not a cheap flight. I'm going to be honest, £1,411. That's the most expensive I've ever paid for a standard ticket. That wasn't even first class. That wasn't any sort of economy class, whatever. Like, that was an actual standard ticket on a really big airline to get to Melbourne, Australia. So I would have went 7 hours to Dubai, and then I would have done the final chunk straight to Melbourne from Dubai. So it was a very expensive flight. And the actual airline company, it's a multi-billionaire company. So even though for me and you, £1,400 a lot for flight money, for them, it's nothing. And they still refuse, despite the fact that I had evidence. And that's the first thing I will say in terms of giving you some advice and giving you some tips from this. Make sure if you're in an accident, whether that be a car accident, for example, or any form of accident, make sure straight away you have as much evidence as possible, because if I did not have the evidence, I don't think I would have got a penny back. So in terms of evidence, I personally I had an NHS discharge form. So basically, of course, when you're actually in the hospital, by law, they had to put out a discharge form. They tell you exactly what time you leave. They tell you what tests are done on you. And that's essentially just to prove that you've been in hospital. So I also had an NHS, I guess I would call it an incident card. So basically, at the scene, NHS staff member there done some tests on me straight away. He actually wrote out a little incident card, which I then took to the NHS. I would just show that to a staff member so they knew what tests to do on me. So again, I had that. So it tells you exactly what time the incident happened. At my actual discharge form, I wasn't discharged until the actual plane was in disguise. So again, by law, I've got evidence to suggest that I'm not even on the plane. My claims company essentially asked me to get a GP note from my doctor. So you pay a little bit of money to your doctor, and what he does is he basically writes out a massive form. So I then sent that back to the claims company. And the thing is with the claims company, everything was slow. You send an email, it take 9 days, they'll reply back. Then you send them an email out. 9 days later, they reply again. It was just slow. Everything about it was so slow. And we'll talk about the claims company a little bit more shortly. But for my second tip, I think the longer you're waiting to get something back, the less motivated you are to get that back. And I think that's a really slimy and sleazy tactic that these airline companies and these insurance companies will do. They know the more time you are chasing something, the more time you are trying to get something back, the less motivated you are to be able to do that. And my second tip is make sure you are constantly chasing it. Now, for me, I probably wasn't chasing as much as I probably should have. Again, more time passed. I'm a bit busy in Newcastle games. I'm up and down the country because watching us play. And I've got to be honest, at one stage, I almost gave up. I almost just went, oh, well, it's just 9 months ago. I can't be arsed. This is doing my head in. They're clearly not going to budge. Have I got to get a solicitor? Have I got to chase this in the smallest claims court? It was just a nightmare. Everything was about was a nightmare. I feel like it's an intentional tactic to basically just try and get you to back off. Now, just keep on it. Honestly, just keep on it. As I mentioned before, I get the GP note from the doctor. I send that to the claims company. Back and forth for a couple more months. Honestly, a couple more months. And then the claims company, out of nowhere, just sent an email saying, you are not entitled to a refund. Like, just out of nowhere. Like, there's no context whatsoever, which made absolutely no logical sense, because I've shown quite literally every single possible piece of evidence. Just a reminder, at this stage, I have sent the claims company a discharge form where my discharge time to the time I've left the hospital is after the time my flight has even took off into the sky. So it's impossible for me to be on that plane. Not to mention, I've already contacted the airline on a good decent amount of occasions now just to say that I'm not going to be in the flight tonight. And at one stage, my claims company straight up said no. They said no for absolutely no reason. So again, basically, I sent him some emails complaining. It was just back, forth. And eventually, out of nowhere, the claims company then sent an email saying, we're going to get the money processed for you now. We're going to take £70 charge off you, but we're going to send you the rest of the flight money back. And they did end up paying in the end. But just hopefully a lesson for all of you watching this video. Few lessons to learn. Chase. Make sure you are constantly on it, because these airline companies and these insurance companies and whatever insurance you're going down, again, they're just going to be arsed. They're going to try their best to delay, and they're going to try their best to basically demotivate you and just to get you out of potentially getting your money back. And if it wasn't for the fact that A, I kept chasing the claims company up, B, I had, a ridiculous amount of evidence. You're talking like the most clear and cut evidence ever. They suggest that my accident was real, not to mention the fact that, again, I was physically unable to be on the flight. I don't think they would have paid back if I didn't have the meat, the back, the bone. So for a couple of lessons in this video, again, make sure you're constantly on it. Make sure if you're on an accident, you have all the evidence as early as possible to suggest everything in your favour. And finally, it's an unfortunate and a bit of a harsh reminder that these companies just don't care about you. They really don't care about you. Now, I'm fortunate and I'm grateful to say that I'm in good health. But let's say it was worse. Let's say I didn't have fat type of stomach cancer. Or let's just say it was someone else in an accident that might have passed away. It was someone in an accident where they've had a serious coma. They've had an incident where they were unable to chase it up straight away. these companies are horrible. They really are sleazy and they just don't care about you. So that's an unfortunate, harsh reality where you guys need to be aware of. So please do look after yourselves. Make sure the obvious point, if you are going abroad anywhere, travel insurance, again, make sure you're insured. If you haven't got travel insurance there, you're not getting a penny back. And not to mention, if that happened abroad, you are paying an extortionate amount of money to go to hospital abroad. So again, it sounds obvious, but you'd be surprised at the people who don't pay for travel insurance. But hopefully, a few things to learn about. Sorry if you feel like this video was kind of just came out of nowhere, but I've only just been paid back a couple of days ago. So like this, even though it's kind of came out of nowhere, like this is still like only just like ended for me. Like this is only just concluded for me. So I kind of wanted to make this video just to bit of more of a personal video for me, but I just kind of wanted to tell you a bit of my story and just to hopefully give you some advice and just to make sure those of you who are watching can just kind of walk away from this video and just be able to hopefully deal with this sort of situation a bit better than I have, and just to make sure, again, if you're unfortunately in an accident, you can get it sorted straight away, because mine was an absolute bloody nightmare and it was stressful and it was just a ball ache, to be honest, behind the scenes. So we finally got it sorted now. 9 months later, we have been paid back. Yeah, let's just make sure we're not in any accidents like that again. But yeah, we did get paid back in the end, and I'm grateful to say that my health is well. So thank you guys for watching anyway. Hopefully you've took something away from this video. Again, apologies if it's a bit out of nowhere. But look after yourselves though, and we will see you all back here Wednesday, Carabao Cup semi-final.